Thanks for joining us once again for our usual Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle, along with...
The other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, my dear comrade. And thank you so much for being here, all of you who are here with us live. It's exciting to see a few faces we haven't seen in a while, and of course some committed folks who show up every single week. And those of you who are watching on the replay, thank you to you as well for being here. And we got to do our YouTube spiel, of course, which is to say, like, comment, subscribe, yada, yada. Thank you so much for all of those things that you have done in the past, like subscribing and liking our videos and leaving excellent comments. We always tend to get excellent comments from you all. So thank you so much for that, and keep them coming.
Yeah, the comments have been particularly good this last couple of weeks, so thank you.
Yes, we definitely appreciate that. And of course, if you feel called, share with your friends. And if they're interested, I hope that they'll find benefit here as well.
Or as I'd like to say, share with your enemies. We will vex them.
Yes. There are a few that we vex out there, and that's cool. Right on to them. I hope that they're having fun with that as we are. Do we have an announcement to make? Yes, we do. Our virtual retreat starts a week from tomorrow, but we will be having our first meeting Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. So for those of you who have signed up already, thank you so much. And if you haven't had the chance, you can follow up with us via the landing page that we'll be linking to in the description below, and you'll sign up that way, get on our mailing list for that. That'll help us keep in touch with you and help you participate along with us. I'll be sending out the packet probably tomorrow at this point, and if you signed up later than Monday, October 31st, I will get it to you within the week before our meeting on Saturday. Other than that, anything important?
Not that I can think of, other than Sweden. Tell them about Sweden.
Okay, so I was just discussing our virtual retreat, but we do have an in-person retreat coming up where we are going to be hanging out in Sweden in May of 2023. And further information about that is upcoming. We are still formulating some of the nitpicky details before we start releasing sign-up information. But if you're interested in that, you can always email us and get maybe not all the information that way, but let us know you're interested, because that's helpful. And we'll make sure that once we do get the info posted, you're one of the first people to know. We will get you directly engaged with that. So I think that's about it. I know we tend to go on. I want to keep it brief. So let's get into our topic for this evening. This is a continuation from the discussion we got started last week, and is kind of in the mix of what we've been talking about for quite a few weeks now. We are going to be talking about intention and the two facets of practice that go into intention. So with that, Mushtaq, why don't you get us started?
What, me?
Oh yeah, you.
Okay. So, intention is interesting. All this week, I have listened to all manner of things about intention that people have put out, mostly, new agey types.
Most of it awful.
Most of it awful, yeah.
Been listening in on it, and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah.
Most people don't understand what intention actually has to do with. Intention is the fuel with which you get to the outcome that you're looking for. It's the way of doing it consciously. So without intention, you still do things, but you do things in a mechanical, conditioned sort of way. Okay, so in Islam, you are taught when you pray, for instance, that you must first make intention. When you go on Hajj, you must first make intention. Nobody tells you how, unfortunately. And so you end up going, oh, I intend to pray 4 rakats of prayer, right? And then you kind of do it. Better than nothing. So what does that actually tell us?
And the word for that is niyah, right?
Niyah.
Yes.
Niyyah in English, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see it written in Arabic on the slide that we did for the talk.
Yeah,
It's way
thumbnail
prettier in
for the
Arabic.
talk.
Yeah. So, intention, how do I describe this? So, reality intends the universe. When I say reality, that's my translation of the word haq, H-A-Q-Q, al-haq, which is one of the names for God. It's my favorite name for God. So, reality intends existence. That means that from the beginning to the end, the path is understood. When you intend something, let's say, today I intend to get groceries. How do you understand that? Today I intend to get groceries. What goes on inside when you actually make an intention to do that? Someone? Anyone? It's easy. It's just going to the store.
Jonathan is.
Well, okay, yeah. Someone else might have had an idea.
I'm all ears, Jonathan. Lay it on
Okay.
us.
Oh, and him as
I
well,
would go
actually.
over in my head. I would visualize it happening.
Yeah, go through the process of that a little bit.
So I would see myself getting into the car, driving over there, getting a cart, and then walking around the aisles, putting the food into the cart.
Okay, and that's it?
And then coming back, putting it in the refrigerator. And then
Okay.
that's probably about it.
Yeah. So you have a full cycle, basically.
And Hind is unmuted
Yes.
as well.
Hind, tell us what you think. Please.
Yes,
Hi.
yes, hi. Yes, the same thing. Make the actions to do to make the groceries. So take the car and go to the shops and take what you need.
Yeah. So intention works with outcomes rather than goals. A goal is an ending. I have gotten to the goal. There is no more. An outcome is a stop along the path of a greater of a greater cycle, for lack of a better term. These are my words. I mean, somebody else might have a different way of saying it. This is the way I say it, which is, of course, better than everybody else's. So, the outcome of intending to go to the store and buy groceries is that you go through the cycle of going to the store and getting all of the groceries, paying for them, putting them in your car and driving them back home and putting them in your fridge or cupboard or wherever. That's a full cycle of the intention. The intention can break down anywhere along those lines, in which case you have something of a problem. I want you to get the idea that when you create an intention, you have to find the outcome point. And then the line that goes from where you're standing now to where you want to be standing then. Without that, it's not really an intention. And that doesn't mean that you can't use an intention to reach a goal. It's just that you have to understand that the goal is an ending, whereas an outcome is a point along a continuum. Am I sounding too new agey, Noor?
I mean, this is a little bit of unfamiliar territory for us, right? Because
Yeah.
it is challenging to talk about this in a way that doesn't land as weirdly new agey. But that's okay. We just need to. In fact, this is something we actually don't cover very often, so this is good practice for all
we've
of us.
touched on this in talks, but we haven't focused on it directly.
Yeah,
And it needs to be focused now, because the idea of attention, intention, and presence in humans is a mirror to what reality does.
Yes. So hopefully all of you who are watching either, with us live or on the replay, you can indulge us as we work to find our language to discuss this.
Yeah, and we will try not to get too weird.
Yeah.
Probably won't work, but we'll try.
So thanks for giving it your best shot, Push Talk.
Yeah. Life without intention is mechanical. Intention requires will to create. If you do things without any intention, you just bounce from thing to thing, and that's cool. That's what most people like to do, and there is no blame in that. For a few of us, we would like to have something else, and that is an intentional life. And that means we have to understand the outcomes that we want and the consequences of those outcomes. We have to pay attention, and we have to be present. So if I'm going to set an intention, say, here I am, I have just woken up, I've gotten out of bed, I've done my morning meditation, or as I often do my morning meditation while I'm still in bed because it's cold out here. And then I set an intention for the day. Like, today I intend to write about this subject, or today I intend to go to Costco and buy supplies for the retreat month, or today I intend to clean the house, whatever. When I do that, I will sit, I will be present, I will pay attention to the intention, and I will follow the path of that intention to its fulfillment. Once I get to the point of fulfillment, then I allow that to pull me forward through time to it. Does that make sense? I realize this sounds woo-woo to me, and I'm saying it. So feel free to ask for clarification.
Yeah, so
Gene, sure, yeah.
Yes.
And
yeah,
then
so I am unclear about why we should make that look at the difference between intention and goal. I don't see a whole lot of a distinction between those two, and why it's important to keep that in mind.
How do I describe that? Like I said, a goal is a stopping point. There is no carrying on with a process behind that. You know, when I'm fencing, I have the goal of stabbing my partner. When I do that, the pass is over. It's finished. I have either won or I have been touched and I've lost. Now we can start it over again and do another pass, but it's not the same pass. This is different than, say, an actual duel with live blades and somebody who's intending to hurt you and you're intending to hurt them. With that, you can have the outcome of getting out of there in one piece. And it's slightly different in that any number of touches and such things could happen. You could end up with little tiny holes all over you and still get out there and be alive and be able to move on to the next thing. It's not a great example, but it's the one that came up first. Think of outcomes as part of an ongoing process, goals as the end of that process.
Okay.
So does that make any kind of sense to you?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that kind of helps you figure out, put things in a context, I guess, and how they fit into your overall plan, because the intention will be a part of something larger, the goal or overall vision and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what this gets to is that intentions are often nested.
Before we move on to that,
Yeah.
is it okay if we touch in on Cherie's question?
Yes, of course.
Hi.
Hi.
Coupled with intention is a strong motivation and an awareness of what could distract you. So you actually said going to Costco for the retreat. The retreat is the strong motivation while you would immerse yourself in the chaos of a Costco Saturday afternoon. So
Yeah. And boy, was it ever.
that's right. So when you're declaring your intention, if you're not clear about your purpose for the intention, you can get easily distracted and demotivated because you'll find a reason to change your intention to something else, and you'll make those excuses. And recently with my clients, when I asked them why they want to do stretching and they go, they want more flexibility, I said, not enough strong motivation to do that, because you're not going to continue the work. Everybody says that. I want more flexibility, but for what? Why would you go to Costco? You wouldn't be doing that just to bump shoulders with everybody, but you're actually bringing in resources for your retreat so that you don't have to go there continuously, you know. So the intention has to be coupled with a strong motivation, with an awareness of what the distractions are.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Okay.
Thanks, Cherie. Ilmar has a question, and then
Go
we're
for it,
gonna
Ilmar.
move on to the nested intentions. Yeah, Ilmar. Are you gonna have to unmute yourself, my friend?
Well, he could just sit there and shake his fist at us.
All right.
There you go.
Got it.
There you go.
This iPad business is new for
I
me.
know.
Anyway, what I was looking at is, I mean, the way you're describing intention is, you have a clear path to an outcome, which you're essentially visualizing ahead of time. But in a lot of cases, there isn't a clear path. I mean, let's take the grocery store. Suppose there's a traffic jam and I need to take a different route to it, or that particular grocery store closed early or something. There's got to be somehow room for more flexibility.
Oh, yeah.
Picture.
Yeah, that's why you have to know what the outcome is. My outcome in going to Costco was to acquire enough of the right kind of foods that I could do the month-long reset diet and intermittent fasting during the time of the retreat.
And not be
That's
scrambling.
and not be
Yeah.
scrambling for stuff all of the time, and not be paying through the nose for it either. So that's my outcome. Costco was part of getting to the outcome. So I get to Costco and I can't get in. There's 10,000 people there. There's a line around the block. I look at that and go, okay, time to recalibrate. I still have the outcome that I need. And Trader Joe's is just a few blocks away. I'll go there and do it. So the outcome is not to get to Costco. The outcome is to get the food. Costco is just a methodology along the path. And so, yes, you have to be completely flexible as you move along, because the universe will oftentimes throw shock points in your way that want to keep you from achieving your outcome.
So your morning intention setting is essentially primarily a setting of the outcome with lots of flexibility about how to produce that outcome, essentially.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
You start with a general idea of this is what I think I'm going to do to get there. And if the universe goes, maybe not that way, then you have to listen to it.
Cool. That's
Bearing in mind the axiom of if you do something and it doesn't work, do something different.
Oh, come on. Do the same thing again and again.
Harder, every time harder.
Exactly. Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
Right. Yeah, that was a good question. And I
Yeah,
think
that
it
was an
helped
excellent question, and it
Mushtak
helps me clarify
clarify.
this
Yeah.
because I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not quite sure how to talk about it to make sense. So y'all are helping me with this, whether you want to or not.
All right. Thanks, guys. So as you were saying, Mushtak, that intentions, I mean, this kind of leads towards this concept of nested intentions, right?
Yes. So everybody needs a massive intention. We've talked about this before. An intention that is nearly unattainable in your lifetime. Think of this as the fundamental note in the plucked string of your life. Do you understand what that means? I have a string. It's stretched between two bridges. I pluck it, and it goes bong. And that is the string going up and down like this. One vibration. So from beginning to end, that's it. Now, along that string, as I touch different parts, it brings out different harmonics within the string. I pluck the string and I touch it exactly in the middle, and I will hear a note that is twice the frequency of the bass note, of the tonic note. I split that and I touch it, and I will get a perfect fifth. I split it again and I touch it, and I'll get a perfect third. And I can find all of the fun notes just by doing that. This is Pythagorean stuff. We've known this for a long time. So if your entire life is the tonic note, the fundamental note, each of these sub-intentions that you make is a harmonic along the way, ideally. If you hit a dissonance, it means you've gone off the path from your gigantic intention. Or something like that. Does that make it? I understand this. If Chris were here, he would understand this. Where are you, Chris, when I need you?
You and Chris are birds of a feather with that
yeah, it's true.
Stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's this we've often talked about like the meaning of one's life, and we get to determine that and establish a commitment to that. And on top of that, we have intentions and such that are kind of helping us to live out that meaning, shall we say. And you know, that those are the deep ones, but then every day we have the ones that are meant to keep us alive and nurture our relationships and get us fed, such as going to Costco and stuff. And that intention of getting food for the retreat ties into our larger meaning of being committed to our practices that in turn help us to stay awake. So again, these are kind of nested intentions.
Yeah. So for me, the fundamental note is enlightenment in this lifetime. It's to live a conscious life and to do it to the end of days. And so the harmonics along that line will be many, many. And each of them, ideally, inshallah, will be in alignment with the fundamental note. Sorry, guys, but the way I think of this is with a musical metaphor. It's how I understand it. If it doesn't work for you, I apologize, but give it a try.
Yeah. Eugene.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's a great metaphor, the musical note. I myself, I could say that the overall tone of my life, I believe, is enlightenment. But I really relish the spontaneity of life. So I kind of like getting up and like, open to what's going on, and kind of like to be shocked maybe with something coming up I didn't expect, or see some correlation between this and that I didn't expect. And so, and I'm very curious. So
Hopefully,
I can see that's a negative in a way, because maybe if I was more concretely intentional, organized, I would accomplish more in a measurable way.
let me suggest that doing that is perfectly all right. To allow for the 1% of hazard in your life, the random happenings, but then your intention becomes to be awake to these happenings, not to make the happenings. Welcome surprise. Surprise is good. You know, the human nervous system loves novelty. So I totally understand what you're saying there. And like I said, the trick is your intention is, or if it's me, my intention is, when I am surprised by something novel in my experience, to be awake to that so that I can most fully enjoy it.
Eugene, sounds like you have a thought
Yeah,
to add.
I concur with what you're saying there. So that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, that way I can choose, if I'm awake to the novelty, I can choose whether or not I want to participate in it. Some novelty is more fun than others.
Definitely
And
true.
there was silence.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
as last week, when we talked about this, we talked about attention being three-dimensional. And if you remember, we talked about the 9 practices that are traditional within our particular path. And we said that 3 of those 9 practices were specifically for attention. And those were awareness of breath, watchfulness, and recollection. Intention is not three-dimensional. It is two-dimensional, and it is a field phenomena. Or if you think of the field as three-dimensional, it has these two poles. The negative pole is where you are, the positive pole is where you want to be, or vice versa, doesn't matter. But it is connected by the field of your intention. Now, intention has two practices. And we've talked about these in different places. And if you go into the playlist, you'll find a playlist where we go over each of the 9 practices. And you
The
can
9
listen to
precepts.
these. Yeah, the 9 precepts. And these two are Nazar bar Qadam, which means to watch your steps, and Bazgah, which means to travel one way, to be single-minded. And you can see how these two might have to do with intention. And when your attention has become focused, then your intention engages naturally. When intention is made, the consciousness of the person must make a kind of field, a pole, one of which is the present state, with the other pole being the state of the intention fulfilled. Your essence, your dhat or zat, goes to the completed intention and makes a path back to the starting point, thereby blazing the trail for the intention to complete itself. I wrote that. That's kind of poetic. I like it.
But this is a trail that has flexibility built into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because everybody knows that the universe is built to have hazard. It's built to have this fun randomness that can step in at any moment and force you to be creative. And I also said when I wrote this, at every moment, be conscious of your actions in respect to fulfilling your intention. Make sure that you do not become lost or distracted, and be aware of the future consequences of each action. That is so important.
Consequences.
Consequences. All intentions have consequences. And part of your job in making an intention is to understand the consequences. So if I make an intention to pray, the consequences of that are coming nearer to the divine reality, inshallah. I'm using that word a lot tonight.
Yeah,
Those
God
words.
willing, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the essence of understanding intention, is to think of it as a field phenomena. It's that note, that tonic is the field that you create. It's a vibration. Here we are talking about vibrations.
I know.
Yeah,
but...
sorry.
Yep. So is there something almost magnetic in quality about it?
You want it to be.
Yeah.
So when I make my intention, I send my essential self along the line of that intention to its outcome. I find the outcome that I'm looking for. And then my essence, my dhat, returns to the present moment and says, okay, we have a path. Let's check it out. Now, fun things can happen along that path. Bridges can be burned. Wild beasts can leap out at you. You can be distracted by the pleasure garden. You all know that one, right? In Xanadu, Kubla Khan, etc., etc.
floating world,
Yep.
the distracting, dreamlike place where you get caught up in the fantasy.
Yep. Which is, I mean, the poem was written from an opium dream, so
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what it was.
Yep. So this is a little more esoteric than we usually get.
Yeah,
on these
but
talks.
sometimes you just got to go there.
Yep. Yeah.
And just because it's esoteric doesn't mean it ain't true.
Yeah, I think anytime we may realize that we've experienced this anytime we had an intention we felt really strongly about, and it was as if whatever came up, it wasn't going to get in the way of us realizing, bringing the intention into fruition.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you are sitting here on the line of our intention right now.
Mm-hmm.
The 9-sided circle is part of an intention that we set. The intention is to take this material, these teachings, and make them available to anybody, anywhere in the world who wants them. Mostly free of charge. Well, basically free of charge. Nobody has to pay to listen to these talks. There is no paywall. We haven't put these up on Patreon or anything. We want it to be free. Like all my hacker buddies say, information wants to be free.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to survive through the 21st century, more people need this than have access to it. And that gives you some hints on what our intentions are. It doesn't tell you exactly, but it gives you some hints.
Mm. So Ilmar has a question.
Go for it, Omar.
I unmuted. All right. Yeah, I was looking at checking out your intentions, and I guess there's basically two ways of doing that. One is to go out in the physical, whatever world, and actually follow the path and see where it leads and what the consequences are. The other one, of course, is to sort of essentially do it in your head or wherever,
Mm-hmm.
And both of those have potentially good and potentially bad outcomes. I mean, I can get lost in my head coming up with all kinds of different possibilities, scenarios, and so forth. And I actually have a tendency to do that, and I could also just get lost in the jungle trying to find the path to my outcome. Any suggestions, hints along those lines?
Yes.
What
I recommend
Good thoughts. Thanks.
at first, your intention is set in your mind, in your heart, in the higher head center.
We want to use, Gurdjieff in language. Yeah.
Now, once you have your intention set, the mind is the one that is required to set out the imaginary path. The heart has to be involved to let you know if the idea is good or not.
Good in
because
what
the heart,
sense?
in the sense of conscience, the heart is the seat of conscience. And so if I go, oh, I could get what I want, all I have to do is shoot this dude, my conscience is going to go, wait a second here. That is immoral, unethical, and probably fattening. And you shouldn't do that. So that's the first step. Now, the second step is to actually go out and start doing it. And as you are doing it, you need to observe the feedback of walking along that path. So it's not one or the other, it's both.
So, quick interjection question. Can you terminate that intention? Can you be like,
Sure.
whoa,
Yeah,
holy
you
shit,
can.
no,
Yeah,
not,
yeah, you
no,
can.
no.
Yeah. You pay a price when you do that, but sometimes the price is worth it.
Mm-hmm. Like if you realize this is going to take you through territory that you're really not feeling is worth the fulfillment of the intention, right?
Yep.
And what's that price? I mean, one of the things that
It
I've
depends
noticed,
on what it is.
one of the things I've noticed, at least in my life, is that if I have a cycle going and interrupt it, that cycle doesn't complete, there's still a bit of my attention caught in that cycle. And the more incomplete cycles I have, the more my attention scatters.
Yeah.
So
And you
is
lose
that-
a little bit of energy.
Yeah. Okay.
And energy, literally, I mean by that, nothing esoteric or woo-woo, energy in the sense of the ability to do work.
Right.
And that has to do a lot with your attention being stuck on that thing. So that is the minimum price to pay. There's a price to pay for everything you do. You know, the only way to play this game is you got to ante up. This game being your life. And the main coin that we pay is our attention. Not intention, attention, the stuff that we were talking about last week. That's where the phrase pay attention comes from. Attention is the coin of the realm when it comes to reality. And so if you have to terminate an intention, you're going to have to pay for that in a certain way. You will lose energy. You will lose a certain amount of attentional energy that you have to work to gain back.
And it seems to be that's kind of where some of the therapeutic work comes in, as to loosening up the stuck attention, essentially.
If the therapist knows what they're doing, absolutely yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, glad you mentioned that too, because that's a really everyday, relatable way of conceptualizing that stuckness or that loss of energy and attention. Yeah. Yep. So is there anything specific that needs to be done to terminate an intention?
You have to do it intentionally.
So again, a nested intention, right?
Yes.
Like to put the foot on the brakes and reclaim whatever energy you can from this process that is just not going to take you in the direction that you have realized you actually do want to go in.
Yeah, so this suggests to you that one should be very, very careful about the intentions that one makes. And this is where the idea of understanding the consequences of your action. If I intend to make $1 million this year, my actions to do that will have consequences. Like I may try and invest all of my money into stocks, and the consequences of that is the stocks plummet and I lose all my money.
Possible consequence, yeah.
Possible consequences, yes. And when you see certain consequences, you have to examine the risks. And the first thing to ask yourself, is the risk worth the outcome? For me, that's not an acceptable risk.
Omar.
Of course, that leads to kind of strategy of hedging your bets, right? Which in a sense also tends to often lead to a strategy of not fully committing to a particular intention.
Yeah, it could be, in which case you're going to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels.
Right.
I mean, I think I have experience with that. Yeah. Like not being all in. You know, once you assess the risks and the consequences and all that, and you come across you know, an outcome of an intention that has high reward and let's say moderate risk, and you're still not even willing to take the moderate risk for the high, you know, reward, whatever it might be. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything tangible. And you're still holding back from that, then at that point it's probably time to look at you know, what is the real intention at work here, and is that one that you want to stick with? Because perhaps the intention that you've been operating under is, I don't want to take, you know, I'm going to avoid risks, I'm going to be safe.
Yeah, and that is there is nothing wrong with you doing that as long as you realize that the outcome of that intention is that you don't go anywhere.
Does that make any sense, Omar?
Oh, it makes very good sense. Yeah.
Hmm.
It just highlights for me again that I think the importance almost of cleanup type therapeutic work, because it's very easy to misassess the degree of risk involved. It's very easy to take something and exaggerate the risk on it. It's,
Yeah.
you know, there's just a lot of places where lack of clear sight essentially can get one into trouble. And, you know, and in a lot of these approaches, not these specific necessarily, you know, I think the cleanup work tends to get ignored, you know, the cleanup.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. You know.
We have framed it as remedial work. You know,
Remedial work, okay.
Yeah. But I mean, cleanup work is a perfectly fine metaphor for it, because you are, I'm going to use our favorite word, you're cleaning up the detritus that you have
I love that word.
built up over the course of, say, a lifetime since young childhood. And it's, there is a certain degree, we don't want to get too lost in that stuff, but there is a certain degree to which we do have to work through that in order to be able to think clearly and to act with clear intention. Yeah. And to not feel boxed in by, I guess we could say, the less informed, less mature intentions we've set in our younger years that sound like, I want to be safe and I want to be as small as I can be so that no one will bother me. I mean, those are a couple of mine, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to figure out, okay, how those outcomes have been fulfilled and now I can move on.
Well, and
Yeah.
and at least one danger there is the setting the intention. Well, I got to get completely clean before I can do this interesting
That's right.
stuff,
That's
which
why
is
I'm
a trap in
saying
itself. You know,
we do need to
Yeah.
be careful about falling into that trap of, okay, I can't do this next thing until I am done, you know, until I perceive I am done with this other stuff. And really, it's just an attachment to the other stuff.
Yeah, or they go kind of hand in hand. I mean, I'm not sure that they need necessarily to be completely sequential. You know,
Right.
But,
Yeah, I think we've also discussed that, you know, generative work is the stuff that we could say follows remedial work, but really they're often happening at the same
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a matter of like proportion, right? Like you
Yeah.
work through your old stuff and eventually you have enough room to work on the new stuff. And over time, ideally, but not necessarily, you've got more of the new stuff going on than the old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems all right.
Good stuff. Any other thoughts or wonderings, questions, type stuff? Anything coming up for you, Jonathan?
Yeah, this idea of needing to continually touch bases with yourself, with myself, to know that I'm still on the right track and moving closer towards the end. That's what am I contacting? What part of me am I contacting to get the sense that
It's
yes,
mostly
I'm
the left earlobe.
That's not
It's
helpful.
depends
yeah,
on
it's
the intent. It depends on the intention.
yeah,
Depends on,
it's
yeah.
all of you, dude. It's every part of you is in on this. And
Yeah.
not just you. If you are working, chances are you are working in a work group. And so you have external help as well as internal help. You can get feedback as you need it. And if you are connected with a teacher, they can give you feedback. And if nothing else, left earlobe.
Okay, I forgot we're still on the big intention. So I thought we'd moved on to smaller intentions. But okay.
Same thing. I mean, maybe you're not going to need the help of your work group to get groceries, but if you have mid-range intentions that you are working on, you might gather up some support, even with some of the smaller intentions.
I don't know if this is helpful, but for me, day to day, like small level intentions, I usually have like a whole literal list on my little erasable tablet thing here that I keep as a notepad for day to day stuff. And it can get pretty full. And at some point, I have to look at it and decide what really matters and what's just my ego just feeling like, oh my God, this needs to be done. It's so urgent. I have to touch into a state of awakeness and separate out what is actually necessary and what is actually something that is both, possible and whose consequences are relevant to what I need that day or what I want that day. And I may have to pare down a whole bunch of stuff. And what's left is the stuff that I really am feeling called to give that intentional energy to. And if I don't take a moment to be awake, the list just gets longer and longer. Or it's the opposite, where it's like, I just, my intention is to play video games all day. And if I don't step into awakeness for a moment, I might completely forget that actually I have a deadline that I have totally dropped the ball on now because I did not take some time to assess what intentions are called for. So I do think that the awake state is important, as well as intuition, in the sense that sometimes we just have this gut feeling that something needs doing or we're doing too much. Does that help at all, Jonathan?
Yeah, very much, because the awake state will allow me to be closer in contact with the feeling of I'm on the right track or I'm not.
Indeed.
And yeah, and the awake state is going to bring me closer to understanding all the various stages between the two poles of intention.
Mm.
I might be in closer contact with the willpower that's going to be driving this intention.
Yes, yeah. That's something I benefit from, is if I'm really feeling under motivated, if I just kind of ask myself, am I awake? Most of the time it cuts through the bullshit almost immediately. And I suddenly feel like, well, I don't feel like doing this thing, but I feel like I have the energy welling up with which I can do that thing. And I'm not so crowded in by like, oh, I don't feel like it, it's too hot or it's too cold or I'm tired or whatever it might be. It's kind of like, well, let's just get done what we can, and if we finish it today, that's fine, and if we don't, we've started the ball rolling and the intention is set to, I mean, for example, I got to get this retreat packet mailed out, so my intention has been set to mail that out tomorrow, and I am going to use my judgment to sort out what energy can be spent now and what energy will have to be spent later after I've had a good night's sleep. And I've put in the experience, I've developed the experience to be able to tell just a little bit better how to determine what energy can be used now and what energy can be used later in order to plan out, follow that path towards the outcome of the intention. Just because I'm feeling driven now doesn't mean I have to get it done now, because I'll probably burn myself out if I try to do it all right now. But, yeah.
So Hind, any last thoughts?
There you go.
Yeah. Yes. Can we say that setting intentions, it's like moving consciously towards our bigger goal, which is what
Yes.
we say enlightenment, and and being open to whatever obstacle or things that could happen or difficulties. It's like it's a way to maybe change not the just the direction, but towards the same outcome.
Okay. Yes. I would say that that's quite accurate.
Okay.
So I am not a complete failure in getting people to understand what I'm talking about. That's a relief. That's pretty much what I've had to say today. How about you,
Yeah.
Noor?
I mean, I think I've shared a little bit about my experience with this phenomenon, and I hope it offers some practical applications beyond, the bigger picture is important, obviously, and the everyday is also important. They're both
Yep.
pretty intimately tied together, and it's the little things that make the big things possible, even if the big things are what keep us going, in terms of our inner motivation and things like that. When the going gets tough, the bigger picture helps a lot, but day to day, we are fueled in our bodies by the little things. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Shri, any last thoughts? No. Ilmar, I think he's
Yeah.
here.
Ilmar is
but
off
not
somewhere.
here. Yeah.
And Eugene had to take off.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but it's a
he
lot
was
later
here
there than
till
it is here.
just about the end, though.
Yeah. All right, let's switch this over to Brady Bunch mode
Yeah.
because I hear
He's
dinner
growling.
calling my name.
Yeah.
Yes. All right,
All
folks,
right.
thank you so much for being here. And
Yes.
we will see you all next time.
All right. Bye, everybody. Take care.